Alright drafters, Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth pre-release is coming up really soon, and it's looking to be a great set, some great flavour, some great mechanics, and some really cool designs of cards as well. I'm really looking forward to playing it, I'm looking forward to drafting it on Arena, and I'm looking forward to the streamer event, which I'll be streaming on Twitch for as well. So if you've not played pre-release before, it's really good way to start playing in paper. If you already know a little bit of how to play, you get 6 packs and you open them and you build your deck. That's fine. I'm going to be going in this video. I'll be going over some of the things that are going on in the limited format. I'll be going over archetypes and the mechanics to look out for, and just a little bit of discussion around some good cards. One thing about the pre-release though, there will be a promo card in it, a bit like we had in March of the Machine. Yeah, it was March of the Machine where you can't play it. So it's one of these 6, I believe, that you can see on the screen, and these are part of the overall scene. So just remember, if you get the pre-release, you can't be playing that in your pack. In terms of mechanics that are in the set, there's only really one new mechanic, and you'll see why I'm saying that in a moment. And it is quite complex. I've actually done a whole other video on it, but it's called Tempted by the Ring. And every time you get tempted by the ring, well, the first time you get tempted by the ring, you'll get this emblem, and the first line will be active. And then the next time, the second line will be active, and the next time, the third line will be active. And each time you're tempted by the ring, you can choose a creature to become your ring bearer. I think the token itself will have a little tear off thing that you can put on the creature to signify who your ring bearer is, but it means that the creature will get all of the activated abilities that are there so far, up to all 4, and then whenever it attacks or does whatever it says on the little emblem, it's going to do those things. A little bit more to it than that. Look at my other video, which I'll have linked down in the comments in the description, if you want to know a bit more about Tempted by the Ring, because there's a few little intricacies that go on with it. The next mechanic we've got is a mass. So it's a mass orcs this time. We saw a mass originally with a mass, probably called a mass zombies now, and that was in War of the Spark quite a while ago, and a few people might not have played then. But it means that if you have a creature which says a mass, you create a 0/0 army and you put that many counters on it. But if you've already got an army token, then you get to just get the counters on it. So the really good way to use this is if you can sacrifice a creature as a chump block with them, or use them in some kind of resource, because then you're going to get a new creature every time you amass, rather than just making one big. But sometimes making one big creature is pretty cool as well. Another kind of mechanic, more of a theme, but one that has some mechanical implications, is legendary. So there's a lot of legendary creatures in it, as you can imagine with a set which is based on a story. But there's a lot of legendary creatures, like you've got Irith of the Healing House here, and it's got a bit of an ability which actually cares about legendary creatures as well, which is kind of cool. And then we've got Great House of the Citadel, which is a land which cares about legendary creatures as well. So, like I say, there's a lot. It's across all colours. I think Legendary Matters exists mostly in black and white, but it does go across all colours. And it's going to be something which keeps popping up and you're going to see again and again. The last kind of mechanic that we've got is food. So food's back in a big way. A lot of the hobbits, it's actually mainly set in green-white, but it goes outside of that as well. But a lot of the hobbits will create food, or work with food as well. And if you haven't played with food before, you create a token called food, and you can sacrifice it for 3 mana, and you get 2 mana, and you gain 3 life. So pretty easy. There's things that care about sacrificing food. There's things that care about how many food you have. There's a few different ways that it's going to matter. Not like a named mechanic in itself, but it is something which is going to matter. If you've watched this far, we're about to go into the archetypes, the draft archetypes of all the 2 colour pairs that are around, and look at some of the key signpost cards. But I have got a couple of arena codes on here for those who play on arena. There'll be a couple in the comments down below. Once you've used one of the codes, if you can let me know in the comments that it's gone, tell us which one you've used. It does help us out and stops people wasting time trying to type them in. So yeah, it's just a big thank you for all the support I get on the channel. I am looking to get back in the stream of doing pretty much weekly videos, and I've got a few things coming up, as well as one special thing coming in a couple weeks time, as long as I can get the right people together for it. That's right, there's going to be some guests on the channel. The first archetype we're going to talk about is blue-white, which is Azorius, and the main theme for this is the drawing a second card in a turn, so you're going to want spells which draw your cards, but it also has a bit of a Flyers theme, a bit of Flyers tempo theme, and I think what you'll find as we go through a lot of these is a lot of the archetypes are a little bit weak, and some of the mechanics are a little bit weak, and I think there'll be different ways to play them. So you could go for a really good blue-white Flyers deck here, which doesn't really care about drawing cards, or you could go in for a deck which cares about the drawn cards, but not as much about the Flyers. But anyway, we've got 2 legendary creatures here. Most of the all of the colour pairs have 2 signpost cards, and most of them have 2 legendary creatures. A couple of them have 1 legendary creature and 1 other thing. Sometimes it's a spell, but usually it's going to be 2 legendary creatures. So first we've got Guahir the Windlord, and I'm going to butcher some names in this video. I apologise for that in advance. And I've also got Prince Imahil the Fair. So Guahir, 6 mana, 4/4 flying vigilance. Other birds you control have vigilance, and it does cost a little bit less if you have a legendary creature. So I can definitely see this coming out turn 4 in a lot of games and just taking over, really, because there's going to be plenty of ways to get a couple of legendary creatures in your deck as well. Prince Emma Hill Affair, it's doing more of the drawing a second card thing. It's also got a bit of a go wide. White is seeming really, really aggro, and there's definitely a tokens theme to a lot of the white cards that are around. But it's a 2/2, which can make 1/1s when you draw a second card in your turn, and that's in any turn. And keeping an eye out for cards which are going to draw 2 cards in your opponent's turn are going to be really cool here, but I don't think that's going to be too easy to do. But that's kind of what the 2 signposts are saying. Look at some other cards from the archetype. So we've got Captain of Ulmar, a 3-mana 2/3 with 1 tap, draw a card, then discard a card. So this is a good way to get a repeatable card draw and drawing your second card on your turn. And if you can get a couple of these, you can draw 2 cards in your opponent's turn as well, if you can find another way to draw a card in your opponent's turn, because you can do this at instant speed and you can do it after blocks as well, which will be pretty good. For the white cards, we've got Stewards of Olgarth. It just grows when you're drawing your second card every turn, which is going to be pretty good. It also tempts you by the ring, and remember that the second ability on the ring is that when the creature attacks, when the ring bearer attacks, you draw then discard. So that'll be a really good way to get the drawing a second card going on a repeatable basis as well. And then finally, Knights of Dol Amroth, 3/3. Whenever you draw a second card a turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this as well. So we've got a nice 4-drop and a 5-drop. If you get the ring tempts you, make the Knights of Dol Amroth your ring bearer. Attack, draw, discard, and it's going to turn into a 4/4. So that'll be a pretty nice curve if you can already get the ring on the board for that. Blue-green is themed around elves, and it's mechanically more about scrying, but I will say this is one of the ones which is very weak. I think there was one card which I saw in the commons and uncommons which actually cared about elves and did things with elves, so I wouldn't really say it's an elf deck, even though a lot of the blue-green cards will be elves, but a lot of the elf cards will scry as well. And it's still a cool deck. I didn't see a huge amount of payoffs for scrying, but there's a lot of scrying that could be going on, and it's a good payoff in itself as well. But it's another tempo deck. So first we've got Legolas, Counter of Kills, 2 green, blue for a 2/3 reach. Whenever you scry, you get to untap it, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it does grow quite quickly as well. And if you can scry at instant speed, that's going to be really good to kind of do a bit of a surprise blocker as well. I've got Arwen as well, so I'm not even going to try saying the second name there. It's blue-green for 2/2. Whenever you scry, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature, so you can scatter those out, which is going to be really good. And you can pay 6 mana to scry too, which is like pretty good if you care about scrying and wanting that repeatable scry. If you draw a land in the late game, you can just scry in your opponent's turn if that's going to be useful, or just scry in your turn. And you can even scry in your upkeep if you're really digging for something important. But for 6 mana, it's quite expensive, but I think it's probably correct in this deck, and that's going to be still pretty good. Looking at the rest of the cards in the archetype, we've got Celeborn of the Wise, which is a 4-mana card. It's the one that cares about elves. So whenever you scry, whenever you attack with one or more elves, you get to scry 1. And whenever you scry, you get to put a +1. It gets +1/+1 equal to the number of cards that you scry. So if you scry 2, it's going to get +2/+2. We've got Elrond, Lord of Rivendell, which is a 3-mana 3/2. And whenever it or another creature enters the battlefield, you can scry 1. And if it's the second time it's happened, you get tempted by the ring. And then finally, we've got Glorfindel, Dauntless Rescuer, 3-mana 3/2. Whenever you scry, you can choose to do one of the 2 abilities, and it gets +1/+1. And of course, if you scry twice, it's going to get +2/+2, and you're going to get both of those abilities, which work quite well with the kind of like the reverse menace. And it's got to be blocked because then it can only be blocked by 1 creature, and it's also going to be a 5/4 if you scry twice. So it's going to be pretty nasty for a 3-drop in that case. Green-black's all about kind of graveyard matter stuff and value from graveyards and life and death and all that stuff. So first off, we've got Old Man Willow, which is a legendary creature. It's a tree folk, so it's one of the Ents. It's 2 green-black for a star with power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. So at base, it's probably going to be a 4-mana 4/4, which is just going to grow. And when it attacks, you get to sacrifice a creature or a token, which will include a food token. And a target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So it's really good for, it gets quite big, it quite easily be a 6/6 later on, and you can sacrifice a food to take out one of their 2/2s or something like that. It's a pretty powerful card, and I think it's going to do some good stuff. We've also got Rise of the Witch King, which is 2 green-black again, and this is a really cool one. So you and target opponent each sacrifice a creature, then you get to bring something back. So if you do it right, you can get the opponent to sacrifice a really good creature. You can sacrifice something that you don't really care about, potentially in a mass token or something like that, and then you get to bring back a really good card from your graveyard. So pretty powerful. I'm not sure if you can bring back a creature that you sacrifice with it. I'll have to put something in the comments when I look into it later on. I think it can because it doesn't say target, but we'll wait and see on that one. Then the rest of the archetype, we've got Grimer Wormtongue. So you've got 2 and a black for a 1/4. Opponents can't gain life, which is a pretty good line of text, and I think it will affect some things in this format. And then you can tap sacrifice a creature. Target player loses 1 life. If the sacrifice creature was legendary, then amass orcs 2. So if you can get a regular amass thing going on here, and you just amass 1, amass 1, amass 1, you can block with both of them, tap this, sacrifice the orc, and make the opponent lose 1 life every turn. And it's going to be pretty difficult to get past because a 1/4 is pretty strong, and if you're just chump blocking with a 1/1 all the time, that's going to be pretty good and slowly getting in there with the damage. We've got Revive of the Shire, 1 and a green, 2 mana, 1 and a green. Return target permanent from your graveyard and create a food token, so it's a good way to get those things back, and the stabilization of this is pretty good as well, because you're going to get the 3 life from the food or use it for something else. And the Nasty End's a pretty good one as well. 1 and a black, instant speed. I think the instant speed's important on this one. Additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, and you can draw 2 cards, but if the sacrificed creature was legendary, then you get to draw 3. So they've got to take out one of your creatures, you can cast this, sacrifice it, draw 3 cards, or like chump block with something of yours or something like that. It's going to be a pretty powerful effect, I think, if you can get the right deck around it. Not going to be going every deck, I don't think, but it's still going to be pretty good in the decks that care about it. Black-white is a bit of a mixed bag in terms of archetypes that are going on. So I think the official line is that it's a life gain and life loss archetype, but it seems to be where legendary creatures are centered. It seems to be where the Ring Tempts You is centered. There seems to be quite a lot of token stuff coming through from the white side of things, as well as the Master from the black. So there's a few things going on. It's going to be one of those archetypes which there'll be a couple of different builds, and you've got to kind of identify which build you're in, and maybe cut some cards which would be good in one build, but not in the one that you have. So first off, I've got Shadow Summon here. White, black, to create 2 tapped 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. So 2 mana to create 2 1/1 flyers is really good. Even if they're coming in tapped, so you can't jump block with them, it's still a pretty powerful effect. And getting this on turn 2 is going to be really good just to start getting in there for damage. Also got Denethor Rule the Steward. 1 white black for a 2/4 at the beginning of your end step. If a creature under your control died this turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. And 2, sacrifice another creature. Each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So you can just do that drain for 1 every turn by paying 2, sacrificing the human, creating another human at the end of turn. And that's going to be pretty good. It's also a really good way to kind of finish off a game. If you've got a board full of tokens and your opponent's at like 5 life or something, then you can just sack your whole board and kill them. There was the Lampard of Life's Bounty or whatever it was in Theros Beyond Death was really good for that. That only cost 1 to activate, but it was really good. You'd get a good board and you'd swing in, you'd sacrifice anything which was blocked. Everything else gets through, and then you sacrifice the rest for like 6-7 mana or something like that and finish your opponent off that way. It was a really good way to finish off a game. The rest of the stuff that's going on, first of all, we've got Protector of Gondor, 3/3 makes a 1/1, getting in that token side of things. We've got Claim the Precious, so it's a murder, but you get to be tempted by the ring. So we've seen the effect before. Murder's a really good magic card. It is sorcery speed, which should matter, and it does matter, but being tempted by the ring, is it enough to add it on? I think it's a pretty good addition as well. And then you've also got You Cannot Pass, so a single white instant, destroy target creature that blocked or was blocked by a legendary creature this turn. So it's again getting into that legendary creatures matters archetype, and just saying there's quite going to be some stuff in, not necessarily this colour pair, but or just around as well, which is going to care about legendary creatures. Blue-black is a control and a mass deck. So I think the Grixis colours, and I think red-black's next as well. The Grixis colours are all about where a mass really lies. Blue-black is the control inside of that. So first of all, we've got the Mouth of Sauron, 5 mana for a 3/4, enters the battlefield, target player mills 3 cards, and then amass Orcs X, where X is the number of instants of sorceries in that player's graveyard. And that's going to be pretty good, especially against Blue-Red, which has an instance on sorceries theme going on. Hopefully there'll be a few in there by this point with a 5 mana card. It's a 3/4 by itself. If it's a 3/4, which makes it 3/3, and you mill in the opponent, because there is a bit of a mill sub-theme in this as well, then it can be pretty good. And then it's also target player, so if you've got a load of instants and sorceries in your graveyard, you can mill yourself and kind of get the benefits from there as well. Also got Ring Sight, 1 blue-black, Ring Tempts You, search your library for a card that has a colour with a legendary creature you control. I don't think, and then you reveal it, put it in your hand and shuffle. I don't think it's going to be a very good card, this one. I think it's, out of the uncommons we've seen so far, the worst one. And I just probably wouldn't play it. Just getting a card for 3 mana isn't great. And yeah, you get the Ring Tempts You, but I don't think it's going to be doing very much. The rest of the archetype, so first of all, got Treason of Isengard, and these 3 cards are all essentially just amass cards which are going to fit into more control and archetype, and you can see they're all instants and sorceries, so they'll work pretty good with the Mouth of Sauron. First of all, got Treason of Isengard, 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Put 1 instant sorcery from your graveyard on top of your library and amass Orcs 2. So in some ways, it's going to be a 2/2, which you get an instant sorcery next turn that you've got in your graveyard. If it's a removal spell that you need, it's going to be good, or it's going to be a really powerful, rare, or mythic instant sorcery as well. That can be pretty good as well. We've got Torment of the Torment of Gollum for 4 mana. Its target opponent reveals their hand. You may reveal a non-land card from it, and that player discards it, and amass Orcs 2 for 4 mana. It's quite... It's not the greatest effect, but getting the body off that as well is pretty good, I think. And especially if you can make use of that body, it's going to be really good as well. Probably not like going to be played in every deck, but I think it's good enough to at least talk about and just kind of say this is what the archetype's about. And then finally we've got Surrounded by Orcs, so it's 3 in a blue, amass Orcs 3, then target player mills 3 cards where X is the amassed army's power. So if you've already got an army, and this is probably one which is better to cast when you've already got an army, so you can potentially make your opponent mill 6 and put 3 counters on a creature. You do run the risk of getting blown out with a removal spell, so if they remove the Orc army with this, I think you'd still get an army of 3, so it's still mill 3, but it does kind of suck a little bit in that case. But it's cool if that's what your deck's about, and you've got a few of these. This is a common, so if you cast this one turn, then mill them for 3, cast another turn, mill them for 6. That's going to be a nice way to go about winning the game, and something that people can do, especially if there's other mill things going on in the format. Red-Black's the more aggressive side of the archetype, and you've got a couple of good cards here that demonstrate that. You've got Manhur, Uruk-hai Captain, red and a black for a 2/2 with Menace, so pretty good stat line already. 2/2 Menace for 2 is pretty good. If one or more +1/+1 counters are put on an army, Orc or Goblin, then you get that many +1 instead. So if you put it on an Orc army, then you're not going to get 2 extra counters, but it's still pretty good, especially if you're going to be amassing quite a lot, and there's a lot of Goblins and Orc just cards around as well, as including itself, and including Ugluk, of the White Hands. So, formats, I'm sorry about these names. 4 mana for a 3/3. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And if a creature was a Goblin or an Orc, put 2 counters on it. So, if you have both of these out, then you get to put 2 counters on it every time something else dies, and it's going to be pretty good. If an army dies and it's a 1/1 army, you get 3 counters on Ugluk, which is pretty sweet, to be honest. We've got, in the rest of the archetype, other things to care about, Orcs and Goblins. So first we've got Olghai Crusher, so it's a Troll Soldier, trample, 4/4 trample. It can't block unless you control a Goblin or an Orc. It's still absolutely fine even if you don't control a Goblin or an Orc. A 4 mana 4/4 with trample is a solid card usually anyway, and just, you probably want to be attacking with it. In this archetype, you will have Goblins and Orcs around, so it's not that much of a downside, so it's pretty much fine. We've got Grond the Great Gatebreaker for a 5/5 equipment for 4, and as long as you control an army, it's just a creature, so it's a 4 mana 5/5. It's got crew 3, and you can crew it if you need to. As long as you've got an army, it's just a 4 mana 5/5 trample, which is pretty good. And then finally, we've got Grishnaf, Brash Instigator. So it's 3 mana for a 1/1, amass 2, which is pretty good. You get a 1/1, you get a 2/2 for 3 mana. It's already quite good, and then you get an active treason effect as well. So if you've got some way to sacrifice creatures, which you could well have in this color pair, this becomes a really good card, and something that I would be kind of looking out for if I've got a few sacrifice effects, because it's just powerful anyway. You don't even need the sacrifice effect, but either way, it's going to be pretty sweet. Blue-red is a Spells Matters archetype, and we've got Bilbo Retired Burglar here, so it is not really a Spells Matters archetype card, but it's pretty good in itself. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you, so you're already going to get that first level, and you probably want to choose Bilbo as your ring bearer because you get the ability which says it can't be blocked by creatures of greater power. It's a 1/3 in itself, and whenever it deals damage to a player, you create a treasure token, so that can quite quickly snowball out of control, really. As long as you don't have a 1/1 or a 0 power thing, so a 1 power creature or a 0 power creature, it's going to get it every time, create a treasure token, and you're also going to get the benefits of attacking with the ring bearer as well. The other card we've got is Gandalf's Sanction, so 1 blue red, deals X damage to target creature with X number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard. Excess damage is dealt to the opponent. So if you've got like 7 in your graveyard, your opponent's at 6 and they've got a 1/1, you're just going to kill them because you do 1 damage to the creature and then you do 6 damage to the face. So that's pretty sweet, and these stack quite nicely as well. You could potentially get away with just a deck full of these. I don't think there's any cap on the number I would want in a deck. If your opponent's got a good sacrifice outlet, just bear that in mind that it's not going to deal damage to the creature, so it won't deal excess damage to the creature, so it won't deal anything to the opponent. So that is something to watch out for here, but it's still a pretty sweet card and one I'm looking forward to play. Rest of it, we've got some really good spells and Spells Matter things here. So first of all, Birthday Escape, blue, draw a card, the ring tempts you. Pretty solid. I think it cycles itself and the ring tempts you, and to get through that ring is going to be pretty good in general anyway. We've got Fiery Inscription, 3 mana. it doesn't do anything by itself. It enters the battlefield, the ring does tempt you, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So it's a good way to, if you've got a lot of these spells, if you've got a load of birthday escapes, you can just start chaining them off, or you've got Bilbo and he's got you a load of treasures, so you can just start really going off with them. It's going to do a good job of getting the opponent dead. And then we've also got Council's Deliberation, 1 in a blue, draw a card, and then whenever you scry, so it kind of would go quite well in the elf archetype here as well, because there's a lot of scry in blue-green. But whenever you scry, you may exile it from your graveyard. If you do, draw a card. So it's a way to draw 2 cards. You've got to delay the second one a little bit until you do scry, but there's plenty of ways to scry in the format. So in some ways, it's a 2-mana instant speed, draw 2. Not quite, but it's pretty powerful, and probably one that it'll pass a lot of people by, because it doesn't do much on its front face. We've got in red-white, so this is a humans matter archetype. First of all, we've got Theoden, King of Rohan. It's 3 mana, 2/3, and whenever Theoden, King of Rohan, or another human enters a battlefield under your turn, target creature gains double strike. So it's really, really aggressive, and getting into that white aggressive archetype we were talking about earlier. We've also got Shadowfax, Lord of Horses, for 5 mana, for a 4/4. Horses you control have haste, so that includes itself. There is one other horse as well, Build the Ponies in the format as well. I think it's a white card, so it does kind of matter there. But the really cool bit is, apart from the flavor text being on there, showing us the meaning of haste, is not the flavor text, the reminder text. Whenever Shadowfax attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand with power lesser than it, tapped and attacking. So if it's a 4/4, you can put a 3 power thing in the battlefield, tapped and attacking. And that might be a 3 power, but it could be like a 6 mana 3 power creature as well. So bear that in mind. But it's a really good way to get value, and you can quite quickly get in for a lot of damage. This will blow people out on turn 5. This will kill people on turn 5 quite regularly, I'm sure, because not only will it be expecting or not be expecting a 4/4 haste creature to be coming down, but it's going to bring something else with it as well. Going into the rest of the archetypes, so we've got Dundane Blade, so it's 2 mana for equipment, and equipped creature gets +2/+1, which is okay. Equip 3, which is not very good, but equip human 1, and if you get a deck full of humans, it's going to be really, really solid there. +2/+1 for a single mana. It is really powerful, and if you can grit, I think there's quite a few 1/1 soldier, human soldier creature tokens as well knocking about, so it's going to be great with them, turning them into 3/2s that you can just kind of trade off and not really care about, and just get in with them. We've got Yoma of the Riddlemark, so this is a 5 mana, 5/4 haste for a start. Whenever it attacks, if you control the creature with the greatest power, which will happen quite a lot if you've got a 5/4 to be honest, then you get a 1/1 human creature token. So yeah, that's pretty solid. And then we've also got Ismark Cavalier, 2 mana for a 2/2 vigilance. When it deals damage to a goblin or an orc, destroy that creature. So 2/2 vigilance for 2 is already decent. It's a pretty good common, and you're going to have some good play against some of the orcs and goblins that are going to be around the format as well, and something that I'd probably just put in any white deck, and it's going to be even better when you're going to be playing against red-black, and really flavourful as well. In red-green, we've got Strider Ranger of the North, which is 4 mana for a 4/4 with landfall. Whenever land enters a battlefield, target creature gets +1/+1 until the end of turn, and its power is 4 or greater. Then, if its power is 4 or greater, then it also gets first strike. So if you do this on a 3/3, it becomes a 4/4, and it's also going to get first strike, which is pretty good. And it's a good way of kind of getting the damage in. It's going to be solid. Red-green's all about big, stompy creatures and a bit of ramp to get there with some ends at the top end. So, it's going to be a pretty powerful card. And, again, 4 mana 4/4 is just solid by itself. And every time you get a land, it's going to become a 5/5 with first strike, which is going to be really tough to block. We've also got Friendly Rivalry, which it takes a little bit getting your head around. It's fine, it's not too bad, but it just is one of those cards which takes a couple of reads. So red-green, target creature you control, and up to 1 target legendary creature you control, each deal damage equal to their power to target creature you don't control. So it's one of these 2 creature punch cards, but one of them, if you're going to choose a second creature, has to be legendary. They can both be legendary. If you only have non-legendary creatures, you can only choose 1 creature, and they both deal damage to the same creature on the opponent's side. So, still decent. It's an instant speed trick as well. We saw something like this with in Martial Machine. It was 1 green. It was Team Up or Dual Strike or something like that. Can't remember exactly what it's called, but that was pretty good when you had the deck for it. I've been blown out with it a few times, and this is a 2 mana version of it, which yes, you need a legendary creature as well, and one of the creatures doesn't need to be legendary that you choose, and you don't just have to have a legendary creature. But it's going to be pretty powerful, I think, when you do that, and it's going to be really easy to get a legendary creature. Also in red-green, so we've got War Beast of Gargaroth, 5 mana for a 5/4. Whenever it or another creature with power 4 or greater dies, amass Orcs 2. So if you can get your Orc army to a four power or greater, then that die is going to get another Orc army back, which is pretty good. And if you can get amass again and again and again, it's going to be pretty strong. Right, quick beam, upstart, enter 6 mana for a 5/6, which is pretty good. When it or another tree folk enters the battlefield under your control, up to 2 creatures each get +2/+2 and trample till the end of turn. So that's a way to really get through the damage towards the end. And finally, Gimli, counter of kills, 4 mana for a 4/3 trample, which is fine. 4/4 trample is better, but you know, it's a 4/3 trample. But whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, it deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. And I think the Legolas we saw earlier is also a counter of kills card, so it's when they're counting the kills that they have together, and the flavor text goes alongside with that too, which is pretty cool. And I think they do kind of work quite mechanically well together, because they both care about creatures your opponents control dying, which is really cool. And it's some of the really nice flavor that's just kind of delicately woven into this set. Green-white is a Hobbit deck, or Halfling here. You can see they're all Halflings when we see a Hobbit, but it all cares about food. So first of all, we've got Frodo Baggins. It's a bit of a food aggro deck usually as well, which doesn't care about food. Frodo Baggins doesn't care about food, but when it or another legendary creature enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you, so it's a good way to get the ring tempting you again and again and again. And if Frodo's your ring bearer, then it must be blocked if able, and it's going to be quite difficult to do that if it's only got 1 power. So I don't really see why that line of text is there, but I kind of get it. Everybody needs to try and block Frodo, but generally it can't be blocked, so yeah, whatever. We've also got Butterbur Bree Innkeeper, so it's a 4 mana for a 3/3. At the beginning of the end step, if you don't control the food, you create a food. So it's a good way to gain 3 life every turn, and a good way to make sure you're going to get that repeatable source of food. And if you can sacrificing the food for something else, it's a pretty good way of replenishing that supply. We also have Second Breakfast, 2 and a white, up to 2 target creatures get +2/+1 until end of turn and create a food at instant speed. So it's definitely going to blow some people out with that card. It's a pretty good combat trick to give 2 creatures +2/+1, and you're going to get the food, which is leaning into that kind of food deck that we've got as well. We've got Peregrine Took, 2 and a green for a 2/3. If you create a food or a number of food, you create that many +1. 3 mana 2/3 is fine. It's an uncommon. It's going to do some food things sometimes, but it's not the most aggressive card unless you're doing something with those foods. So you do really want to have. No, it doesn't make food itself, but you do really want to have something to do with that food if you're playing with Peregrine Took. And then finally we've got Eastfarthern Farmer, 3 mana for a 2/3 again, and whenever and it's battlefield, you create a food, and then you give it another creature +1/+1 for each food you control. So if you've got a few food, it's going to be a really good card. A 3 mana 2/3 which does something else is definitely good. And I wasn't saying Peregrine Took was bad, but this one is something that you see it's doing something a bit earlier, and it kind of just works in most decks, whereas Peregrine Took only really works in a dedicated food deck. And that's it for the archetypes. Like I say, some of the archetypes aren't really strongly defined. Some of them are a lot more defined than others. Some will be a few different builds. White seems to be very aggressive. Black's got its good removal as normal and things like that. But it's there's a few things going on, and I think there's going to be a lot of attacking in the format. I don't think the game's going to go on too long generally, and that's going to be something to watch out for. When we look at the fixing, there's a few bits of fixing around. We saw the Great Hall earlier. There's a couple of lands, kind of like the Shire Terrace, which is a little bit like an Evolving Wilds, but not quite. You can use it as a colourless land to start with, and then when you need the extra the colour, you can go off and find it. We've got Inherited Envelope, which is a manalith version, which tempts you by the ring. The ring tempts you. I think there's also a 2 mana creature. It's a 0/3, which filters mana for 2 mana. Or for 1 mana, no, for 2 mana. So it's there's another artifact which is up there, and there's a couple of things in green. You got Many Partons, which is go get any basic you want, and you get a food, which is a pretty good rate as well. And then we've got this creature as well. I can't actually read the name; it's too small on my screen right now. But it's a 2 mana dork, and you get a few extra abilities out of that as well. So. There is some fixing around. There's no dual land cycle at common. The rare lands are a bit of a mixed bag. They just went for more flavour rather than function, I would say, which is fine. But there's no dual land cycle at common or uncommon, so that's something that we don't usually see these days. But you do have a bit of fixing scattered through there as well. We also have a cycle of 1 mana land cyclers. So you can see there's the Wooburg ones here, and they all have a single mana cycle for a plains, an island, a swamp, a mountain, or a forest. And they're all quite big spells, big slashy spells that you want to cast late game, but early game you can use them to go find the land. these aren't the best fixing in the world. They're more just kind of land smoother and just to make sure you get the good lands in your hand. But if you start with 2 lands in one of these, you can kind of hedge your bets on drawing your 3rd land, or just discard this to go cycle for a land from your deck, and kind of thins out the deck a little bit as well sometimes. But generally, you're going to want to cast these. If you can find a way to bring them back, so kind of looking at the green and black ones, they're going to be a little bit better than the rest, I would say. But they're all pretty solid. We've got the counter spells of the format, so there's 3 that I can see. We've got Stern Scolding, which counters target creature spell with power or toughness 2 or less for a single mana, which is pretty good. There's some mutterings about it maybe being played in Modern. We've got Saruman's Trickery, which is a cancel, which also amasses Orcs 1, which is pretty good. Cancel does see play every now and again, and getting that extra body is going to be really good, I think. It's going to really push that cancel effect higher, especially, like I've said before, with all these amass things, if you can do something with that. And then finally, we've got Reprieve, which is return target spell to its owner's hand and draw a card. It's in white as well, so bear in mind, this isn't the best counter spell in the world, because they're going to get to cast it again, but you get to draw a card, and if your opponent's playing white and not playing blue, they could have this, so just bear that in mind when they hold that mana up, and they could get some effect out of this. So it's definitely something to watch out for. If you've ever been caught by Mana Tithe, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And finally, we have the boogeyman of the format. So I always pick out one card, which I think is going to be the most powerful. It's just a little bit of speculation. This time, there wasn't really a good standout one, I will say, and I was just looking through the cards. I don't usually like going for a big multicolored spell, but I went for Saruman of many colors. So 3 white, blue, black, and the key thing on here is it's got ward, discard an enchantment, instant, or sorcery. So it's not just discard a card on the ward cost, you've got to discard a specific type of card. And ones it don't tend to run a lot of, so it's going to be really difficult to get rid of, and it's got a really powerful ability as well. 3 colours, okay, it's going to be more difficult to cast, it won't go in every deck. You know, if you 2 of these colours, you're going to want to splash it every single time, but it is pretty powerful, and I think it's probably going to be the most difficult card to deal with, and the one you don't want to see coming down on your opponent's side the most. But feel free to let us know if you think there's a more powerful card as well. And that is about it. I'm going to stick an extra code on here. I need to change the slides so there's an extra code on here, but there is another one on there because it is a really exciting set, and I just thank you for making it this far. Again, let us know if you did make it this far. Just, like I say what you think the Boogeyman of the format's going to be in the comments if you have, and I'll leave you at this point. Thanks again for watching. Catch you again soon. Bye.